everyone, and welcome to this special video here where if you guys have been around on the channel, you heard myself and Daniel Howat talk about this last year. CinemaCon just wrapped up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Daniel Howat here, being a resident of Las Vegas, he always attends on behalf of Next Best Picture to recap what is going to be released in theaters for the rest of the year and in some cases even beyond. So Howat, jam-packed week. Lots of trailers, lots of footage, so much to get through. We're not going to touch upon everything, but I want to touch upon the key things that I think our listeners will be most interested in hearing about and what your overall perception was, because these are some of our most anticipated films of the year, Oscar or not. So let's dive into it here. What was the first day like, and what did you learn?
Yeah, I mean, the first day, just to give some context, I think people sometimes don't know what CinemaCon is or don't have an understanding, and they think it's maybe just like Comic-Con, but for all movies. And that's not what it is. I understand it's called CinemaCon, but that's not what it is. It is a conference, a convention for the theater industry, so the movie theater industry. So you've got theater owners there, you've got all the big chains, independent theaters, and they come to celebrate filmmaking and celebrate their business. And so they're there meeting with Dolby and getting into technology and concessions. And the studios are there to say, hey, look, here's what's coming to your theaters. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. The studios need the theaters need the studios. And so that's why we're there.
The problem, though, with that is right now, I imagine the industry is in such a, I don't want to say like a turning point, but let's just say we're at a very controversial point where streaming is so dominant now. I have to imagine that almost every single one of these presentations where somebody comes up on the stage and champions cinema and going back to the movies, it almost feels backhanded in some ways, especially maybe even coming from certain studios like Amazon that have both a streaming and a theatrical presence.
Yeah, there is some of that. So CinemaCon is put on by a group newly named Cinema United. They used to be called the National Association of Theater Owners, or NATO. So wisely, they rebranded this year.
Yeah.
Michael O'Leary is their president, and he came out and he made a call that he's been making to studios directly. He works very closely with studios. He called for an exclusive, a minimum, I should say, 45-day theatrical window, meaning for 45 days, once your film hits theaters, it cannot be on PVOD or on streaming for 45 days. It's just a call, again, this is about relationships. He can't make the studios do anything, but they do have power. They're sort of lobbyists with the studios, essentially. And so he talked about that on the first day, and it was repeatedly brought up throughout the convention that some studios referenced it and agreed with it. Some, obviously did not mention it. So it was sort of a mixed bag, but every studio that takes the stage, they celebrate big box office successes that they've had recently. And then they talk about, the good or the bad of their relationship to theaters at the moment. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of conversation about sort of the battle. And on that first day, the first studio that was up was Sony Pictures. And one thing I found interesting that they didn't mention was that only of the studios that were presenting this week at CinemaCon, only them and Lionsgate don't operate their own streaming service. That should be like something that the exhibitors in the crowd would love to hear. And they didn't really mention that. But they did celebrate and acknowledge what they're doing for theatrical windows, and really upholding that before they dove into their upcoming slate.
Right. And, we've been hearing this obviously get brought up more and more. Sean Baker at the Oscars so publicly stated this. And so I have to imagine the thing that is so striking to me, and then, of course, we'll get on to hearing more about the films here, but I want to end on this point, is that I don't understand why by now so many of the movie studios don't see the value of keeping a film in the theater longer, because it just seems to me that there is hard data that supports that it hurts box office to pull your film so early and throw it on streaming right away.
Yeah, they talk about that. I forget off the top of my head who it was that talked about it. It might have been Michael O'Leary. Apologies for not remembering, but They showed a lot of data. They
Hmm.
showed that since COVID, they compared COVID numbers to pre-COVID numbers, and they showed that pre-COVID, the average theatrical window among all theatrical releases was something like 88 days, and now the average is 31 days. And they also compared that to grosses, and they showed the drop again, comparing post-COVID to COVID, pre-COVID to COVID numbers, they showed the drop that grosses take, and they showed that it hurts the smaller movies more than anything. The top five grossing movies definitely take a dip, with this lower theatrical window, but then all the rest of the films take an even larger dip when they have this shortened window. So yeah, there were a lot of discussions about this, and yeah, definitely the topic on everybody's mind at CinemaCon this year.
Sure, absolutely. All right, man. So let's walk through it. What do we got here in terms of the latest updates from the studios? What do they got coming?
Yeah, first up was Sony, and honestly, they kind of started with maybe the best presentation of the week. I thought their presentation was incredible. They showcased movies that we've seen stuff from, 28 years later and stuff, which I mean, it looks incredible. They also showed some stills from the sequel, 28 years later, Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta. So that's exciting, and they're trying to get financing for a third, Danny Boyle said on stage, which was great. So we looked at that. The things that impressed me the most, though, were some upcoming films that we haven't really had a look at. I know that especially our audience is very excited for Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing.
Mm.
Trailer for that looked great. And it looks very different from Aronofsky, honestly. A lot more humor than I expected it to have. It kind of felt in the vein of Uncut Gems, but maybe less dark, which is a weird thing to say about an Aronofsky movie. It really just felt like, this kind of bumbling guy on a chase across New York City. Again, very, very similar vibes to Uncut Gems, but I really liked the vibe of the trailer. Austin Butler looked like he was doing a great job. So yeah, I'm really hopeful for that film.
I'm just excited in general to see maybe something that's a different type of film from Aronofsky. We haven't seen him do something. I don't want to say like Yeah, I'll say radically different since, say, maybe Noah.
Yeah.
To an extent, but even that had some overlap with something like, say, The Fountain. But this really does not, maybe not in terms of style. I'm not really sure if that came across for you, but at least in terms of tone, this
Yeah.
sounds like definitely a departure for him towards something that's maybe more set up to be commercial.
It did feel more commercial. He said on stage that it was something that he wanted to have fun with,
Mm.
and I think that energy of like fun and lightness is not something I would apply to. I'm trying to think. I don't think I would apply that to any Aronofsky
He
movie
he
at
read
all.
those Mother and Whale reviews and was like, "All right, I'm gonna just give them something different this time."
Yeah, and like I said, that energy comes across. Like it doesn't look dour or super dark. I mean, of course, it's R-rated. It looked
Mhm.
violent and things like that. But it did look like there was kind of a fun energy to it. So yeah, I was really digging what we saw there.
And how does Austin look?
He looks great. Yeah,
Mm.
he looked like he was having fun with the role. He shed the Elvis voice still. So yeah, it was great. It looked really good.
Is he putting on a voice for this, or does it just sound like his normal voice?
I don't really remember exactly how his voice sounded. I think it sounded sort of nondescript. It didn't sound like anything notable that I can remember.
Okay, so it's probably just him being
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Nothing,
And we
nothing.
know how great of an actor he is, so
Yeah,
he's probably going to crush it, especially
yeah,
working with someone like Aronofsky who can get the most out of his actors. So,
exactly. Yep. Yeah, and then another big surprise. I don't know how much of an Oscar play this will be. We'll see. But Kogonada was there with his film A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey.
wow.
And honestly, it's one of the more memorable trailers, maybe just because it's more of a surprise than anything else. I don't know why a Kogonada film should be a surprise. He's a phenomenal director.
Hmm.
But the trailer, it's very Daniel Howat coded, very sweeping, romantic, earnest. It's kind of hard to describe what we saw. It's Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie, kind of these two people who just kind of connect and develop a relationship. But there's lots of fantastical elements. They showed like a door that sort of opens to memories of theirs from children or throughout their lives. It also showed other glimpses of things like them sitting on the moon, observing the Earth, like lots of very fantastical elements. But the tone of the trailer, the visuals The visuals were gorgeous. I loved the way it looked. So yeah, I can't tell you what it's about. I don't really understand what it's about, but I know I loved the tone. I loved the way it looked. It looks very earnest and romantic. So it looks like a very big swing. So those sorts of swings don't always pan out. Could be too weird, too out there. I don't know. But I'm really excited for it. That was one of the ones that I like sort of didn't I didn't anticipate seeing from Sony. I didn't think about that film before heading into the presentation, and
It's
I walked
supposed
away
to be coming
really
out
excited.
soon.
Yeah, yeah, it does come out soon. I can't remember the release date off the top of my head, but yeah, I think it's this summer.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting. Kogonada is obviously one of our most exciting filmmakers working today, and you put Margot Robbie, Colin Farrell together. It sounds like it'll be something special. Going beyond that, I heard that there were updates for Spider-Verse, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the third
Yes.
entry in the trilogy that, in my opinion, so far is perfect. And if they nail this third film, this will like rival the Toy Story trilogy for me. Well, what used to be a trilogy. Um, but what did they say in terms of like, when they think this film is going to be completed by? Because there's obviously been a lot of discussion over missing dates getting pushed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong, I believe this was supposed to come out last year initially. I think
That
that was
was
the
never going to happen.
well, because it was supposed to be like a 1-2 punch. It was supposed to be Across the Spider-Verse, immediately followed by Beyond the Spider-Verse. Yeah, they did announce it. Phil Lord was there with directors Bob Persichetti and Justin K. Thompson. They directed the first film, Into the Spider-Verse, and they're back for this one. It's delayed again. Obviously, that's no surprise, but it's delayed to June 4th, 2027. So definitely a lot further out there. They did promise that it'll be worth the wait. Of course, they're going to promise that. I really hope that it is. I am hopeful though by the delays. I think that kind of means that they're not phoning it in. They're not just like making something to deliver by a specified date. So I do take the delay, even though it's disappointing. I take that as a positive. They showed us some images. It's hard to describe because it was really more like flashes of things where they had Miles sort of narrating it from the previous film. I'm gonna do my own thing. Those sorts of moments.
Yeah.
But we did get some really spectacular animation. It looks again, in the brief glimpses that we saw, looks like it could be even more stylized than Across the Spider-Verse, which was already pretty out there in terms of animation.
Yeah.
So they showed a really cool shot of what's his name, the Spot, the Dot. What's his name from the yeah? They showed him like almost like absorbing a city. It looked really cool. I dug the way it looked. I have no idea what the story is. They didn't give us anything about the story, but yeah, Beyond the Spider-Verse is coming in 2027.
Well, we know Miles has to save his dad and go up against a prowler who is also himself, and Spot's apparently gonna, do his best to get back at him. Yeah, man, and who knows what new stuff they're gonna throw at us in this one. Easily my most anticipated film of 2027.
Yeah, it's funny because usually the studios mostly just focus on 2025 or mostly focus on just this year, right? But Sony actually looked a lot further out for most of their films. They gave us updates not just on Spider-Verse, but they also gave us an update on another Spider-Man movie, the next live action Spider-Man. I believe it had already been announced that Daniel Dustin Cretton was taking that over, right?
Yeah.
But Destin Daniel Cretton, I should say. But they did announce the title. They had a video from Tom Holland there to announce that it's called Spider-Man Brand New Day. And that one's also coming out a lot sooner, actually, 2026, July 31st, 2026. So don't have to wait quite as long for that one. They gave us nothing else, no other casting, no villains, no story, no nothing. So don't know anything else about it, but it is called Brand New Day.
But I think the biggest bombshell news of them all was the project that Tom Rothman, the head of Sony, has stated is the most excited he's been about a project since he worked on the original Avatar. Howat, I'm still in disbelief that this thing is real. Like you hear something like this and you immediately think, well, that's going to be a streaming release or something like that, or a mini series on HBO or something. No, Sam Mendes, Academy Award winner Sam Mendes, is apparently making count them, four Beatles movies that are all going to release in the same month.
Yeah.
Next year, is it?
No, not even close.
Okay.
2028. We are far away from these Beatles movies. He said they're going to be in production for a full year,
I mean,
Or maybe he
four
said over a
movies.
year. Yeah, 4 movies exactly. And so that's the thing. This was confirmation. We knew a lot of this information because it had been leaking slowly over the past few months, really. But
Yeah.
this was all confirmation. This is how it's happening. This is what's going on. And of course, he did bring out the cast. Paul Mescal's playing Paul McCartney. Barry Keoghan's playing Ringo Starr. Harris Dickinson is playing John Legend. Not John Legend. John Lennon. And who's last? Joseph Quinn is playing George Harrison. So they were all there. They did like a little Beatles thing of kind of saying hello to the crowd. It was very cool. But yeah, they really push forward the event that they're trying to create with this series of films, I guess we're going to call it. Mendez said that he's wanted to make a Beatles movie for years, but he said he kept struggling to fit it into one film, and then he felt like it was too great of a story to make a miniseries out of, which the theater crowd loved, because it's standing up that theaters are bigger than
Right.
TV, right? And yeah, and so that's what led them to this. They didn't say if they're landing on all the same day or if they're going to do one each week. We don't really know much more than that, but they were really harping that this is going to be an event for them.
This is wild. I mean, I am excited because these are four incredibly talented young actors, but also Sam Mendes, I think, is a great filmmaker. Truly, I do. Even Empire of Light, which a lot of people were mixed on, I thought had its bright spots. So I'm really excited for this, and I'm excited to see how the experiment itself plays off. Like, will audiences go for something like this, and are they going to be able to take something that is a model on television and make it work in the theater this way? We've seen it work with like the MCU, where you can release a couple of films a year, stretched out over many years, over many films, and audiences will show up like there was if they were watching episodes of television
Hmm.
week to week. But this is a little bit different, so I'm
Yeah,
really
they
really curious.
Rothman described it as the first bingeable theatrical event, which is look, I love the big swing, honestly, and I
Yeah.
think if there's anything that's going to make something like this work, there's a better chance of it working for 4 Beatles movies than, sorry to those who love it, the Horizon films from
Hmm.
Kevin Costner. This has an inherent draw. The Beatles are still maybe the most popular band in the world,
Yeah.
and so I really do think this has a shot of making a genuine event. So I'm excited.
Very excited. All right, so that's it for Sony. What was
Yep.
up next?
Up next was Lionsgate, and I think Lionsgate heard that Sony did 4 Beatles movies, and we're like, we can't be outdone. We got to bring 4 John Wick movies, and so that's what they did. They really went hard on John Wick. They were teasing Ballerina because that comes out soon. That's this summer, so of
Right.
course they were showing us a lot from that. But then they discussed 3 new John Wick movies. They had John Wick 5, which they've already announced, but that's officially coming. Keanu's coming back. Chad Stahelski's coming back.
Hold on. I got thoughts on this really quick.
Okay, hit me, hit me.
I thought chapter four, if it was going to be an ending, they did it really, really well. The series went out on a high note. It was the best film of the four, and it completed the story of John Wick in a way that could be satisfying. I have always maintained from day one when I saw that ending and how it ended at the graveyard scene that was clearly an ending that was meant to be open-ended where they could end it here if Keanu and Chad Stahelski couldn't come up with a story or a reason to come back, or it could leave it open that John, because he doesn't trust the table to honor their word, would fake his own death, go into hiding, and try to live a solitary, peaceful life. So that's obviously what's happening here. And to be honest with you, I think like there's a really great possibility to pick up the story at a point where John has been now away for a couple of years. Maybe he's got some gray in his beard. Keanu Reeves is getting older, right? Let's play with that. Let's have some fun with, I'm not saying he has to be like all white beard, old man Wick, but like let's tell a story of now.
Old Man Wick. What a title. You need to
Right?
you need to contact somebody right now.
But I'm just saying, like, I think there's opportunity here to tell something that is going to not only continue the story in a way that, listen, does it really end with five? Is there another one
Yeah.
beyond that? Who knows? But I do think, you start getting into questions of mortality again with the story. And I'm excited for it because it's exactly what I envisioned that they could and should do when four ended, and also because too selfishly I loved four so much that I really did want more. It was like when Breaking Bad ended, and it was like, God, it ended so perfectly, but I want more because it's so good. So
Well,
I'm
they're giving you
excited for
more.
this.
They are
Yeah.
giving you more. I'll tell you that.
I understand some people little hesitant. I get it, but for me personally, especially because Chad Stahelski is coming back to direct, now if they could just get Dan Louston to shoot it, man, I'm all there.
Yeah, so they definitely are giving you John Wick 5. They didn't say if it's like the start of another trilogy or anything like that. They didn't mention that, but we got John Wick 5. And then also two spin-offs. So first they said Donnie Yen is coming back for a spin-off on Kane, and not only is he starring in it, he's directing it. So and they're going to film this year. So Kane is coming back. I think that's very cool. And then most excitedly and most unexpectedly, they announced an animated John Wick prequel. There's no footage; it's too early on, but they showed us some concept art. It looked pretty incredible. It's from Shannon Tyndall, who did Ultraman Rising last year, and I spent some time with him, and he's a smart dude. He is a creative mind who really has a vision, like a visual vision, and so I am really excited to see what he can cook up with John Wick in an animated film.
I'm excited. I know it's a lot of spin-offs. I know it's a lot of stories. Ballerina, as we know, is releasing this summer. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see before we pass full judgment here, you know?
Yeah.
But, they didn't just talk about John Wick, though.
No, no, they did not just do that. They turned their attention to Francis Lawrence. He's got two projects coming up, one sooner rather than later. The first one we saw was The Long Walk. Mark Hamill was there. David Johnson was there. It looks great. It's a great Stephen King book. Very Hunger Games-esque. Suzanne Collins. Sorry, she ripped off The Long Walk and The Running Man, which we heard about later. She ripped both of those off for the Hunger Games, and so it's only right that Francis Lawrence is directing this one. And the trailer looks gruesome. It's definitely R-rated. It's about a bunch of teens who set out on a long walk, and the last one to survive gets a fortune. And so it's bleak, it's bloody, it's violent. And yeah, the guys, David Johnson said they shot it mostly in consecutive order because it is just a long walk, and said they were walking like 10 to 15 miles a day while shooting, like for real.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's a lot. And yeah, the trailer showcased something good. So I'm excited for that.
I've been waiting for this for many, many years for this adaptation. So I'm really looking forward to it. The trailer sounds fantastic based on how you've described it here. But also too, you mentioned Hunger Games, and
Yes.
well, of course.
Of course, yeah, Susan Collins did just release a new book, Sunrise on the Reaping. It's pretty good. I read it, and yeah, they've already announced that Francis Lawrence is taking the reins on that. They they really hyped it up like they were going to give us a big announcement, a big casting announcement or something, and they didn't give us anything, actually. They said it's going to be filming this summer. They're deep in the casting process, he said. But that's about it. I was a little surprised, especially they gave us the book. Like they gave us everybody who in attendance the full copy of the book and everything.
Wow.
So with that much hype, I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely announcing the cast. And yeah, nope, they didn't announce anything. So nothing to report on Hunger Games: Sunrise on the Reaping other than that it's arriving. And they did drop a logo treatment online that you saw. We saw that as well. So
Yeah.
that's there. But nothing else to report there. And same goes for Michael, the Michael Jackson biopic. A lot of people are very excited for that one. I don't know why, but a lot of people are excited for that one. And yeah, they gave us nothing, actually nothing. They said that announcements would be coming soon. I would be just shocked if the movie is coming out in 2025. It's currently scheduled for October. They gave us a trailer for it at last year's CinemaCon. So for them to give us nothing this year, no way it arrives in 2025. I would bet my money on it. Like no way it's here. So sorry to fans of that, but it's not coming.
That is moving on.
Yes, exactly. They showcased a couple trailers for upcoming stuff. Aziz Ansari's Good Fortune is coming out this fall. Looks really great. Looks like a hilarious comedy. They showed a trailer for it last year as well. There's not much to say. It's not a big awards contender, but it looks like a great comedy. I'm all in on that. Also, probably not an awards contender, but maybe my most anticipated of the year. you know it's John Carney. Anytime you show Daniel Howat a John Carney movie, I'm in, I'm there. Yeah, it's called Power Ballad with Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas. It looks like a John Carney movie. It looks great. It looks musical and fun and hilarious. So yeah, I'm 100% in on Power Ballad. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy for you. I love John Carney, but as much as you love John Carney, I love Trey Edward Schultz. And
Yes.
just saying, I can't wait to see Hurry Up Tomorrow. The new trailer they released for this thing, like the visuals look unbelievable. I can't wait to see this thing in IMAX. I don't know what it's about necessarily. I don't know how it's going to play, but I'm seated because I've loved all of Trey Edward Schultz's previous films. So.
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna watch it. I think they're being so vague about the story that
Mhm.
it's telling me that this is a feature length music video. That's what I'm getting.
Kind of what I'm gathering too,
Yep.
especially considering it is based off the Weeknd's most recent album. It's got the
Yep.
same title. So I imagine it could be, I don't know. I'm not saying anthology based, but it might be something that along those lines, like you're saying. Yeah. Like, not saying it's a full music video, but it might
Even the
have
concept.
this. Hmm.
Yeah, even the concept that they talked about, Jenna Ortega was there and talked about her character as Annie, short for anima,
Hmm.
which is like the female part of the brain. And so she is like sort of the female, and she's like the embodiment of this part of his brain. That's a music video concept, guys. Like
Yeah.
that's what this is. So, you know, the visuals do look great. You're totally right about that. Like it looks incredible visually. So, you know, I'm in on that part of it. I also appreciated the weekend they came out and they did an actual show. So he performed a few songs and he got the crowd like standing on their feet, which is these are exhibitors at a conference. You know, that's not they're not primed and ready for a weekend concert. He
I'm
did a
loving
great
this.
job.
I'm just having flashbacks to Scorsese at the Oscars. You know,
Yeah,
he was like
exactly.
all sleepy.
Yeah, that's what it was. But he was able to like get the crowd on their feet and stuff. It was great. It was an awesome. I mean, I've never seen the weekend in concert, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
Glad I got to experience that. But yeah, will the movie be good or really a movie? I don't know, but they're definitely pushing it in theaters and standing by a theatrical release for the movie, which I really appreciate.
So on to Warner Brothers next. Big
Yes.
studio here. I know that everyone is very much looking forward to One Battle After Another from Paul Thomas Anderson. Obviously, we got a trailer for that recently. When I look at like Warner Brothers slate for the rest of the year, it's pretty light,
Yes.
all things considered. Um, and I say this more in the sense of those fall to winter releases because they have F1. F1
Yeah.
is going to be a big, big deal. But I think like other than One Battle After Another, they don't have really anything releasing in like the fall and the winter that would be an awards player. So unless if Superman from James Gunn turns out to be like the Top Gun Maverick of this year, even though everyone's thinking F1's going to be that, their Oscar hopes are resting really on those two movies, F1 and One Battle After Another, it seems like, especially after this presentation.
Yeah, they didn't really change their minds there. I mean, you've seen Sinners. I haven't. They sort of teased that. I
Mhm.
know that's early in the year. I don't know if that's much of an awards contender. Or if you want to talk about that.
I think that will be like challengers. It will have a
Okay.
lot of champions. I think that there will be a push for it to get nominated for certain things. But it's not the kind of movie I could see the Academy going for. But then again, who
They surprise
knows?
us. Yeah, they
Yeah,
surprise us.
this day and age, they go for a lot of things that I didn't think that they would once go for. So,
Yeah, but your initial take, I don't disagree with. Their award slate is pretty light. You know, they do honestly their slate overall is pretty light. You know, they got Minecraft movie coming out this weekend, Sinners later in the month, and then they do. You know, they have stuff like Final Destination that should be fun. They showed us a clip, a whole extended sequence from that. Looks disgusting, just like it should. You know. But yeah, they showed us a lot from F1. It looks great. They showed us, I believe it was the first 10 minutes of F1. It really looks pretty incredible. Very much Top Gun energy, but you know, I'm not mad about that. And yeah, and then the reason their slate this year is a little bit light is because they've pushed a few things out to 2026, like The Bride. And so
right.
they did come out. They did a whole presentation for The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal, Jesse Buckley were there, and they gave us a look at that. and it looks out there. Like this very much feels like a director who had a first hit and is now taking her big swing. And
Mhm.
I I I don't know how much it's going to be for me stylistically. It feels very much like Yorgos Lanthimos, like sort of Victorian but punk rock. And so it's got crazy energy. It looks bonkers, but in a really good way. So yeah, they talked about how the bride in the original Bride of Frankenstein had like three lines or whatever, barely spoke at all, and they were laughing about how different their bride is. So yeah, I'm very excited for it. Like the crafts look insane. The makeup work looks amazing. So yeah, very excited for that. Interesting that they pushed it to the spring. So will it be able to hold on for awards all the way, through the next year's Oscars? I don't know, but it looks incredible.
Very excited for it. I've spoken about this before at length about the release date, and does this mean that it's Dune or does it mean that it's Mickey 17 in their eyes? I'm going to say more of the latter,
Yeah,
because Dune had its original release scheduled for the fall before it got pushed. So that wasn't, I mean, that was the case here at first as well, where it was supposed to release in early September, if I
mhm.
remember correctly. So, signs pointed to a possible Venice, maybe TIFF before released festival rollout. But now I'm gonna take a wild guess and say, to your point, like you describe it as punk rock and kind of bonkers and everything, and they're probably like, well, let's spread. They're obviously, I think, going through a rough time. They've had a lot of box office misses, and one battle after another, I'm not sure is going to be another box office hit for them either necessarily. Like Leo will still have some pull there, and he's
Yeah.
still bringing some audiences, but I'm not expecting this thing to make them like $400 million or something. They're really going to need F1 to like overperform, and same with Superman to kind of salvage
Yeah.
this year, I
Yeah,
think.
even with F1, it's a shared production with Apple. And
Right.
so, I don't know what the money exchange is there between the two of them, but it's not all theirs. And so, yeah, Superman is obviously, of course, where they have their big hopes. And yeah, James Gunn did come out and with Peter Safran, with David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, they all came out to talk Superman. They already released the trailer that they showed us
Mhm.
online, and I think it looks good. I'm very into it. I
I
like
watched
this.
it last night with my roommate, the preview, if you will, and I was laughing my ass off with Crypto jumping all over
Yeah.
Superman. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the visuals looked good. The visual effects even look great. I said to my roommate, I was like, looks like they're going for photorealism on this dog, but he moves, so unnaturally. But I'm kind of okay with it because it's
Yeah.
an alien dog at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So I don't need it to be so realistic. And so that's like kind of the thing with James Gunn is that he knows how to ground his stories and make his characters very believable, but then he'll like push it in terms of these fantasy elements and also the visuals with the colors that just pop more and give it that kind of comic book feeling that
Yes.
reminds you that this is still a movie to get lost in as a fantasy. And so, I gotta say, after watching the preview, I was more excited based on that than I was on the initial trailer. Like, I think this could stand to be one of the highlights of the summer easily.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for it. I think you're right. Like James Gunn knows how to um, make it believable and authentic emotionally, but
Hmm.
still acknowledge that these are live action cartoons and not in a bad way. Like not every superhero movie has to be dour. And
Right.
so, yeah, I'm really in. I thought it was great. I was a little surprised that Gunn and Safran didn't even reference any other DC project. They have so many things in the work.
Yeah.
Not a single other project was announced except for in the animation segment, which we'll talk about in a second. Nothing else was announced or even mentioned. They didn't even like hint at big things in the future. That was it. So I was a little bit surprised there, but
My guess
didn't.
is they don't want to take away anything from Superman, and I think that's kind of smart to put
Yeah,
all of the focus on that, because I mean, I think it achieved its goal. I saw a lot of like, people chatting about this movie in a more positive sense than I have seen based on some of the other footage that released previously, where it was like, Like all of a sudden, you guys hate James Gunn. Like, what are we doing here? You know,
Yeah.
it's like I get the sense now that people are ready to go to the theater to see this.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks great. Like I said, Warner Brothers did have a segment talking about animation. They're relaunching Warner Brothers Pictures Animation, and their first release is going to be The Cat in the Hat with Bill Hader, and so they brought him out. They showed us like a very work in progress trailer. It looks very much like the Illumination Dr. Seuss
I was
movies.
gonna
So
say,
yeah,
yeah, like what
it
kind of
looks
form of animation, right?
yeah, it looks like anime. I mean, it looks like Illumination could have produced this. I
Okay.
don't mean that necessarily as a bad thing. That's just how it looked, and so we'll see how that turns out. It was funny. I mean, you got Bill Hader. It's pretty funny. But more, surprisingly, they showcased a whole like teaser for the relaunch of Warner Brothers Pictures Animation. They talked about so many projects. I can't remember them all. They shot off like 8, 9, 10 projects that they have in the works. I was blown away. So the ones that I can remember, John Chu was there for Oh, the Places You'll Go. So he
Hmm.
talked a little bit about that briefly. Again, this is all in a video montage, so it's very, very fast.
Yeah.
We saw glimpses from Meet the Flintstones. So they're making a Flintstones movie. They talked about Dynamic Duo, which is the other DC project that they're making for the two, I believe it's Dick Grayson and so sorry, I'm not a comic book guy. The two versions of Batman, sorry, of Robin, coming together, and they
Okay.
talked about how they're playing with animation on that one. So they talked about utilizing live action puppets with computer generated animation. We didn't really get to see much of anything other than like wireframe things,
Hmm.
but I love that they're experimenting with that. They talked about Margie Claus with Melissa McCarthy. What else? There was a whole slew of things that they announced. I was really shocked. I was also shocked that they utilized Bugs Bunny in that teaser. I was like, that feels like a slap in the face for what Warner Brothers is doing to Looney Tunes these days. But that's an aside. So yeah, we'll see if Warner Brothers can sort of establish themselves among the big animation houses. I think now's the time to do it, as there is definitely an opening in the animation world for sure.
Yeah, I was very surprised by this as well, considering once again, it seems a little hypocritical given how they treated the day the Earth blew up, and also to Coyote versus Acme, which
And they've
now
removed
is
all
yeah.
the classic Looney Tunes. They've removed them all from Max. You can't watch them online anywhere now.
Yeah, so I I want to have faith in this move, but at the same time, I'm very cynical about it. And it this all sounds really great, like based on what you're saying. How many of these are going to make their way to theatrical and
Yeah.
or just go straight over to the Max platform, right?
Now, I
That's
will to
yeah.
to their credit, they said, I think this is a quote, "We are committed to theatrical animation," is a quote. So, you know, you're right though. I share your same
You
concern
know why they're saying that?
because they need
Because
to.
they see what the Despicable Me movies
Yeah.
make. They see what Disney makes from animation. Shit, Minecraft movie this weekend is going to be making a lot of money, and it's like partly animation. So uh, kids, regardless of what parents feel, like how parents feel about Hollywood or going to the movies nowadays, they'll bring their kids to see something just to get them to shut up for an hour and a half to 2 hours. I mean, you're a dad, you know.
That's not
So
why I take my kids to the movie. I want to be clear, but
it's a reason
yes.
why a lot of parents take their kids to the movies, I would argue.
But
Um,
yeah, no, you're right. There's money to be made there.
yeah.
And honestly, even though I don't know how it feels to people who don't have kids, but to me as somebody who does have kids, it feels like there's often no family films out. There are long stretches of time where there's nothing I can take my 6-year-olds to the theater for. And so yeah, there is room. There is room for another animation studio, a major animation studio, to sort of take hold here. But in the time with like Flow winning Best Animated Feature and just this big shakeup with Disney not having the same power that they had, especially in the animation space,
Mhm.
there's room. There's room. So yeah, I was very, very excited and honestly hopeful for Warner Brothers Pictures Animation. We'll see what happens there.
All right. Universal Pictures. One of my favorite studios because every time I seem to like doubt them a little bit, they then come around with something that just completely surprises me. Or they, I mean, in my opinion, like they really like commit hard to making sure that their movies are event movies in a very major way. Now, I will give some criticism and say they are definitely like they are definitely the number one biggest culprit of the theatrical window because so many of their films like blink and then all of a sudden they will be on streaming on Peacock like right away.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did discuss or I should say they didn't discuss the theatrical windows at all. Not a peep, because of course they
Yeah.
can't. They can't. Now, they did
Because
talk
they
about
know they're the worst offender of it.
exactly. They did talk about though, which is again giving them their credit. They talked about how no other major studio, or no studio at all, has released as many films theatrically since COVID. They've had 65 films in theaters since COVID, and they showed a graph. I don't remember what the other numbers were, but it was far more than the other studios. So they use this as a point to say we are committed to theatrical releases. But you're right, they left out that we're committed to theatrical releases that we will abruptly throw onto Peacock. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's checks and balances, right? There's like some
Yeah.
good, some bad. So,
Like
yeah.
I like the reign of Donna Langley. I think she's done a great
Yes.
job of cultivating like these amazing filmmakers, under her slate. They were obviously able to get Nolan, they got Jordan Peele, they got the Daniels,
Spielberg
and
obviously has been there for a long time, and they've kept him there.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing that was what really marked their presentation, the variety. I think more than any
Mhm.
other studio, it felt like they had so many movies. They're right in that they put a lot of movies in theaters, and it's a wide variety of stuff from blockbusters, franchises, original stuff, indie stuff, animation. It's all sorts of stuff, and so there was a lot that they showed us. And actually, before their presentation, earlier in the day, they showed us the full live action How to Train Your Dragon film.
Mhm.
And I'll have a review up later, but I really enjoyed the movie. The biggest criticism I have is yes, it's just another live action remake. It doesn't necessarily change the story or feel like a companion piece or anything like that. But that aside, it's still an entertaining movie on its own. So I was pleasantly surprised. And of course, later on in the presentation, they announced that they're already planning the sequel to come out in 2027.
So my thing with this movie, because I heard nothing but praise for it from everybody who saw it at CinemaCon. I take that with a grain of salt a little bit, obviously,
Yeah.
because everyone's super excited. They're getting this exclusive preview of something, et cetera, et cetera. It's festival fever at a non-festival, right? Um, I mean, in all honesty, take out the whole we don't really need this, why is this necessary argument. You're telling me it works as a film, period.
It works as a film, period. Now, hear me. I'm not allowed to review yet. I was about to
Yeah.
give a score. I was about to give a score. I'm not going
Don't
to give
do
a
that.
score. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. It's not going to be my favorite movie of the year. It's not,
Mhm.
it's not like some incredible masterpiece. It's not.
This is not Top Gun Maverick from CinemaCon a
No,
couple of years ago.
no, not at all. It's good. I
Yeah.
call it good. It's a good movie, an entertaining movie. I had fun with it. Honestly, towards the beginning, I really actually sort of had a guard up. I was kind of like, do we need this?
Mhm.
For most of these live action remakes, the visuals are garbage, and there were some places in the film where there were some really obvious sets, like they just didn't look like they were in a real location at all.
Yeah.
And then the exact opposite happened. There were gorgeous visuals where they were very clearly on like the hills and cliffs of Scotland. And so, it was a bit of both in the visual department. So it's not a perfect film, but I really did enjoy it, and everybody else seemed to enjoy it as well. I think I compare to determine how much you want to take me seriously.
Mhm.
The reactions to The Flash 2 years ago when we saw that at CinemaCon,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, myself included, we all said it's one of the best comic book movies we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I famously
Audiences-
remember that. That's why I
audiences,
bring this up, Howat.
audiences didn't agree, and I will again revisit to say they showed us a different cut than the theatrical cut. I will say that, but I don't think that's the case here. I don't think they showed us a different cut. There were no, at least that I saw, there were no unfinished visuals. It looked complete. So yeah, no, I love it. I think audiences are going to like it. As far as live action remakes go, it's one of the better ones in recent memory.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They had a lot of films that they showed off. We can't go
Yeah, we'll
through
rattle
all of
through
them
them.
here, yes, but the big ones I think everybody wants to know about were the films by Focus Features, which they didn't really do much of, from what I understand.
No, they really breezed through those. So, they had a poster that I'm sure people saw online with the release dates, with most of the release dates, but just
Hmm.
kind of teasing their upcoming films. So, we did get a look at the trailer for The Phoenician Scheme, Wes Anderson's new film that comes out, I believe, in May.
Yep.
And it looks great. Look, I'm not the biggest Wes Anderson guy, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask, but it still looked good to me. It looked fun. It looked like a Wes Anderson movie, of course, and it looks kind of more globe trotting. Benicio del Toro's the main character, and yeah, it looked really fun. So that's where they started, and then they moved on. Sorry, I have to look at my notes here. My brain is mush.
Begonia.
Begonia, that's right. Yes, Yorgos Lanthimos' next movie, Begonia. Very quick teaser, right? Maybe a minute long or less.
Hmm.
And it was narrated by Jesse Plemons as he's talking like on this sort of monologue about worker bees being, how they worship their queen bee, but then the queen bee is neglecting the workers. And then it kind of cuts to him shaving Emma Stone's head, and she's like, passed out, and then she wakes up, head shaved, something sort of white makeup on her face, wakes up scared in captivity by Jesse Plemons and another person. So it looks, it's a very brief look, looks very much like Yorgos Lanthimos. We'll see. We didn't get too much look, but it is coming out later this year.
So here's what I can gather based on this November 7th release date. Yorgos Lanthimos adapting this 2003 South Korean film, Save the Green Planet here. Sounds like it's going to be a film that deals with class and be considering that they showed something for this and not something for Chloe Zhao's upcoming film Hamnet tells me that this is probably Focus Features' big awards push this year.
It's possible. It's also possible. I mean, Lanthimos works really fast, right? We know that.
Hmm.
So it's possible that he's just further along. They did confirm Hamnet is coming out this year, as is Ronan Day Lewis's film Anemone. And then there's another film. What am I missing? There was those two. There's the Downton Abbey movie,
Yep.
and then there's one other film from Focus Features that I'm
Uh,
forgetting here.
Trying to remember now. Oh, was it the Ethan Cohen film?
Yeah, that's the one. Honey Don't.
Yeah.
Honey Don't.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
they
and Roman Day Lewis's film with his daddy.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So they said all three of those, Ethan Cohen, Ronan Day Lewis, Chloe Zhao, all three of their films are coming out this year. They confirmed. So
Thank you,
they just,
Focus.
yeah, they just didn't really give us anything else on it.
Hmm.
I am guessing that for Ronan Day Lewis and Ethan Cohen's movies, I'm guessing they're not awardsy, but they did sort of tease that we should be excited for Hamnet. So, we'll see why we didn't get a look at those. I think Universal is just more focused on the bigger money makers,
Hmm.
but yeah. Similarly, they didn't really give us anything new for the Odyssey. Again, just that they said Homer would be proud of what Christopher Nolan is making. Sure, okay. And then also that Steven Spielberg's new movie is coming next year, and said that it's like a return to form for his sort of sci-fi big adventures. So, what I was more surprised about was that they didn't even reference Jordan Peele or the Daniels new movies, both of which are supposed to come out next year. So
I
why did
think
they
the
not even mention
Daniels
those?
film got pushed for Spielberg.
Okay, okay, I missed
Yeah.
that push.
They
Um,
need they need I think a little bit more time on it, and Spielberg's film apparently is going quicker than expected. So
Naturally, yeah.
yeah, I believe from what I understand, Spielberg's film took the Daniels' original date, and Daniels are going to get pushed out another year.
Gotcha.
But we do know that something else is coming out for good
Yes,
this
we got
Thanksgiving.
yes, indeed. We did get a look at Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo in Wicked for Good. They came to stage with John Chu and Mark Platt, and Cynthia and Ariana came out in all black, very different
Hmm.
from the press tour that they've been on. So perhaps that's the look that they're going to go for in the big media blitz this fall. And yeah, I mean, it looks great. We got lots of different glimpses of things from the movie. We got Glinda putting on her crown. We got Glinda at her wedding. We saw she and Elphaba reuniting in Oz as Elphaba sneaks to Oz to reunite. We saw Fiero, leading a squadron to sort of find Elphaba. And yeah, in the final moments of the trailer, they sang "Because I Knew You." They sort
Yeah.
of from For Good kind of took turns singing that to each other. Very emotional. Lots of tears in the house just at the trailer. And yeah, I mean, look, I love Wicked. I'm really excited for the movie, and the trailer looks great. I did notice. I will say this. I saw a few people say that the visuals were a step up from the previous film. I don't know what they're talking about. I have been a defender of the cinematography for a long time. This movie looks the same. Why would it look any different? They shot it at the exact same time. The visuals are not a step up because they shot it together. So anybody saying that, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know why you're saying that, but that's what some people are saying.
I don't understand that claim either. Like you said, they shot up at the same time. It's the same cinematographer. There's going to be continuity here in terms
Yes.
of the visuals. So, like, yeah, I completely agree with you on that front. I'll see for myself, obviously, when we get the trailer. I overheard that No Good Deed played underneath a
Hmm.
chunk of it.
Yep.
And my only question, Howat, is who is playing Dorothy?
Well, no, they didn't show us. They didn't show us. We did see the quartet, like from the back, kind of stuff that we've already seen
Yeah.
before. I'm sure they gave us new sides of it, new images from it, but it was all still from the back. I will say that there is a person rumored, a young
Yep.
actress who is rumored, and if you look at her answering that question on the red carpet, I think you can determine for yourself who's playing who's playing
And you know
Dorothy.
what? If it is her, it's a great choice, I
It's a
think.
great choice.
So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm all for it.
So yeah. I imagine. I don't know. I kind of feel like they're not going to even do press with her until after a few weeks after the film comes out. I feel like they're going to withhold it, but I could be wrong. Um,
Amazon, MGM Studios.
Making their CinemaCon debut.
Yeah, I was very surprised by this.
Yeah, it was weird to hear them announce, Prime Video and Amazon MGM Studios head Mike Hopkins announced with just the words Prime Video. That's sort of like a dirty word here
Hmm.
for anybody to mention a streaming service in front of the CinemaCon crowd. Um, they really did feel like they had a lot to prove. Are they going to uphold the legacy of MGM? Are they going to be taken seriously in the theatrical space, or is this just something to feed Prime Video? And I got to be honest, I was very, very impressed with their presentation as a whole and the films that they talked about. They really seem like they're going hard into big filmmakers, big swings. Their films are not very conventional. They're not just leaning out of all of the studios who presented. Theirs is the least reliant on franchises. Maybe they don't have any. Yeah, there's like one or two little franchises here that they've talked through, but nothing massive. Of course, they didn't really talk about Bond. That's their big franchise that they have. But yeah, it was a very original slate. And it opened with maybe, I guess I've got to call it my most anticipated film of 2026, because that's when it comes out, Project Hail Mary. Based on Andy Weir's book. He wrote The Martian. The book is one of my favorite books of all time. And it's from directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Their first directorial feature since what? I mean, Lego Movie, I think. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Because maybe 22 Jump Street was after that. I can't remember, but it's been a very long time since they've directed a feature or a live action feature, and it looks amazing. Greg Fraser shot it. It's a big sci-fi film. It's four quadrant. It's big sci-fi, big action, huge comedy as well. And Ryan Gosling is perfect for the main character. I really loved everything I saw from it. As a fan of the book, it felt so good. They showed us maybe more than I wanted. They kind of showed us like the whole story in the
Hmm.
trailer. So I hope that's not the first trailer that they release to, release online. But even so, I'm so excited for the film.
It's written by Drew Goddard, so that's
Yeah.
another thing that also like gives me a lot of confidence in this. Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I don't think have missed as directors yet
Nope.
either. Shot by Greg Fraser, like you said, co-starring Sandra Hüller. Yeah, this is definitely something to be excited about for a multitude of different reasons. I don't think it's going to be an awards play or anything like that, given that it's a spring release date in
Yeah.
2026. But still. looking forward to it.
Yeah,
But the film, yeah,
it'll be like a visual effects, it'll be like a craft sort of situation. But
gotcha.
yeah, it looked great.
But the film that obviously I think got the most buzz, had the most buzz coming in, and also is probably going to be Amazon MGM's big awards contender this year is Luca Guadagnino's After the Hunt, starring
It's the
Andrew
real deal.
Garfield. Oh, wait, what?
It's the real deal. Yeah,
Whoa. Okay,
I
Howat.
mean, look, I'm judging off of a trailer. So
Yeah.
look, the movie could be garbage. I don't know. All I can tell you is the trailer looked incredible. Like you started to say, yeah, Andrew Garfield, Io DeBeeri, we had Julia Roberts. She's the main star. She wasn't there. Io and Andrew Garfield were there. And Luca Guadagnino was there as well, who directs the film. It looks incredible. I mean this in the best way. Some people could take this as an insult. I mean it in the best way. It looks like Luca's most commercial film that he's made in a long time.
More
It's
than
his.
Challengers?
Oh, absolutely. Challengers led with like a three-way kiss in the trailer. Like, that's not
Okay.
for all audiences. I mean, of course, this is rated R as well, but this looks like a commercial play as well as an awards play. Like, this really does look like a film that, if it's good, of course, awards bodies could really go for. It's about they all play professors. Io plays a student teacher, and they have very close relationship between Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield. Very mentor relationship, but also very touchy feely.
Hmm.
And Io makes an accusation of assault from Andrew Garfield, and so for Julia Roberts' character, it devolves into who do I believe? What does this accusation do? What does it mean for my relationship for this person that I love? How does this impact our work? All of this, it's very twisty and complicated and asks those big questions of like a Me Too sort of accusation. And it really looked dark. It looked like it's gonna be really truly wrestling with those hard questions. I was so excited from this trailer. It looks incredible, truly.
So what you're telling me is that it's the spiritual sequel to the 2012 Danish film The Hunt.
Exactly right. It's precisely what it is.
I mean, like, as I said, everyone's excited for this. I'm excited for this. Luca Guadagnino has been on such a roll lately that it's hard to imagine this being a miss for him. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is this whole talk about it being very, very commercial. But you have big stars attached to it, so they're trying to obviously sell it. But the material sounds, very dark, at least.
Yeah.
I guess then it just is a matter of how that trailer is going to be marketed and how is that story going to be told, exactly. I'm curious. I'm very,
Yeah.
very curious.
Yeah, I think audiences are going to like it. I definitely think it's up the Academy's alley. Another twisty thriller that they talked about that has big fans is Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover had multiple projects announced here at CinemaCon. She's sort of the new Stephen King, I think. And this was Verity from director Michael Showalter. Stars Dakota Johnson, Anne Hathaway, and Josh Hartnett. Very twisty, dark, multiple relationships here, kind of competing for Josh Hartnett. I've read the book. The book's good. I'm not a Colleen Hoover fan, but it definitely looks like something audiences are gonna really eat up.
All right. Well, that's encouraging to say the least. I mean, there were a number of projects released here or announced here that, you know, gave me gave me a jolt of of excitement. Michael B. Jordan's doing the Thomas Crown Affair, for example. And then there was something else. Craig Mazin's got something, right?
Yeah, the weirdest project that was announced at all of CinemaCon. It's a movie called Three Bags Full, a sheep detective movie.
Oh,
Okay,
so
that's the
this
full
is
title.
going back to his pre-Chernobyl days, is what you're telling me.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. So look, but he's a new Craig Mazin. He's an Emmy-winning Craig Mazin. Has he learned how to do comedy in the years since Chernobyl? I don't know. All I can tell you is they opened with this movie. They put the title up first, and then
Hmm.
they put up a picture, like a poster image of Hugh Jackman holding a sheep. The audience burst into laughter, not in like a this is so funny way, but in a is this movie real sort of way. It looked like
Hmm.
a spoof poster. Because he's got a sheep here, and he's got the farmer's hat, and he's just kind of grinning, and it was like, what is this movie? I'll tell you what the movie is. It's a family film, a family whodunit, which on its surface, a whodunit meant for family audiences. I think that's a great concept. I love that concept. Um, Three sheep have to solve the murder of their beloved farmer, and which all in all, for a family movie, sure, that sounds fine. Just everything they showed us looked bright and weird. They didn't show us much actual footage, just a lot of behind the scenes footage. It looked like Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Bryan Cranston, maybe they're voicing sheep. They didn't say they're just doing some sort of voice work. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this movie, but yeah, we'll see what Craig Mazin can do. Obviously, I love Chernobyl. I love The Last of Us. This is not that, so we'll see what it turns out to be. I don't know.
I am all of a sudden now not as excited as I was when I first brought this up, but we'll see. And then they didn't mention anything about James Bond, huh?
No, no James Bond. It's understandable. They just announced that David Heyman and Amy Pascal are taking the lead. But yeah, so nothing from those big franchises. They did showcase another big franchise, Masters of the Universe.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just shooting that now with I can never say his name, Nicholas Galtantine. Is that how you say it?
sure.
He's playing He-Man. I'm not a big I don't know Masters of the Universe. I didn't grow up with the cartoon or the toys or anything, but they did say they're honoring those things. They're honoring the toys, they're honoring the cartoons. And so yeah, they're really leaning Travis Knight is the director, and they're really leaning into like the fantasy nature of it. So, we'll see how that turns out. But maybe more excited, two very quick projects that they showed us.
Hmm.
Um, uh, is God is the name of the film. Stars Vivica A. Fox as God. I don't know how to describe the movie. They described it as hold on, let me get this quote right. They described it as part Greek tragedy, part Afropunk, and part spaghetti western.
Wow.
The trailer is insane. It's the directorial debut of Alicia Harris, who adapts her own Broadway play. Yeah, it looks insane. Keep an eye out for that. I don't know if it's gonna be any good or not, but it looks nuts, and so it's worth mentioning at least. And then yeah, they sort of teased the Thomas Crown Affair, like you said, which is coming out from Michael B. Jordan, and then an action movie from Mahershala Ali called Your Mother, Your Mother, Your Mother. So yeah, all in all, they really focus on for Amazon. They focused on mostly 2026 and beyond to really sort of establish themselves as a studio to pay attention to, and I mean, they got my attention. So yeah.
Is God is. I just did a quick look up here. Sterling K. Brown, Vivica A. Fox, Janelle Monáe. It's Orion Pictures, so
Yeah.
that's a good sign because anything usually made under the Orion Pictures banner is typically of high quality.
Yeah,
So,
they talked about reuniting. I mean, sort of resuscitating Orion Pictures. They've been back around for a few years now, but they're
mhm.
also resuscitating United Artists. I don't think they announced any specific films from United Artists, but they are bringing it back as a label, which is exciting.
It's very interesting that they're doing that, but at the same time, it's like one of those things where you want to have your cake and eat it too, where you have your main division that makes your commercial properties that can be streamed on Prime Video or be released in theaters, maybe be a box office hit. But then you've got these specialty labels, Searchlight Pictures, Focus Features, one's under 20th Century, aka Disney, and then the other one is under Universal Pictures. So Amazon sounds like that they're trying to have this for themselves as well. I mean, with MGM Studios over the last couple of years, we've seen Women Talking, Nickel Boys last year, and so I think Orion, United Artists, it's all like just a sort of way to have these other subdivisions so that they can just keep putting out as much variety as humanly
Yeah.
possible. It's a smart move. It's a smart play. As they say in the studio, we could do both.
Right, right. Yeah, well, now that you're bringing up the studio, I should have mentioned this earlier. First of all, I wish the CinemaCon episode of the studio had come out publicly before CinemaCon this year. I can't believe they didn't schedule it that way. People would have been talking about it, referencing it in every presentation. But
Absolutely.
they did. Tom Rothman on the very first presentation for Sony, he did come out and say, "Hi, I'm Seth Rogen," and the audience seemed to get the joke, which was great.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, yeah, I think. This is a total side note. We don't need to go into it, but it does seem like evidence of the presence of the studio. I don't know how that'll turn out with the Emmys, but I was very happy that that got a shout out.
All right, we have two studios left here to discuss Paramount Pictures and Walt Disney, which have a lot to cover. And we have about 30 minutes left here, Howard. So, Paramount Pictures was all about Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, right?
Yes, they definitely anchored it with Tom Cruise. He came out towards the end to give Christopher McQuarrie the Director of the Year award from CinemaCon, and really honored him. Spent a long time really talking about McHugh, talking about his impact on the industry, and calling him the modern day Irving Thalberg. Um, it really felt like not only a tribute to McQuarrie, but once McQuarrie came out, it really felt like a send off for Mission Impossible. It really felt
Yeah.
like they were saying goodbye to the series. Tom Cruise went on and he thanked everybody who's worked on the films over the years, thanked everybody at Paramount, his producers over the years, as well as all the directors of the films. He thanked Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, Christopher McQuarrie, Chris McHugh, Christopher McHugh, and McHugh. So um, I thought that was great. But yeah, this felt like a send off. I was really surprised at how much it felt that way, honestly.
So I've been saying for a while that given that it's called The Final Reckoning, the way that the first initial trailer they released played out, everything that you're describing here, I have it in my gut, Howard. I could feel it. Something is brewing here where if they nail this, and it really is that big send off, and if it is a commercial smash hit, bigger than Dead Reckoning, which shouldn't be so hard considering that film underperformed a little bit. Um, I have a sneaky suspicion that this could be a bigger Oscar contender than the previous Mission Impossible was, where it received the first nominations of the franchise for visual effects and for sound. I think this could do even better.
What's even better? Like cinematography? Picture?
Let's just leave it up to the imagination
I
for
was gonna
now.
say, yeah, no,
But
I'm gonna
listen,
challenge that statement.
listen, we saw Top Gun Maverick do this, you know? Let's imagine a world where this gets like film editing, sound, visual effects, and maybe, just maybe, it finds its way into a 10.
We could imagine a world. We could imagine a world.
Don't you feel like there is a sense of importance around this movie?
No.
And no, I don't mean, listen to me. I mean in the sense of the big screen theatrical experience
Yeah,
and how much this is probably going to be, along with Superman, probably the film of the summer, I imagine.
I agree with that.
Or
Yeah.
F1. But like, you know, I just I don't know. They're really building this thing up to be this send off, this finale, this culmination. And when you nail something like that, traditionally, the industry will want to reward you in kind for, in this case, over 30 years worth of entertainment, you know?
No Time to Die.
Sure, sure. Oscar winning film.
Yeah, totally. I'm not saying it's not going to get Oscar nominations, but considering this, the franchise doesn't have a long history at the Oscars. It's been nominated only for its last film out of the last 30 years. So that's part of the reason why I don't have any confidence in that. You know, you referenced maybe it could be a Top Gun Maverick, maybe. You forget we'll talk about it here in a minute. We also have Avatar: Fire and Ash that if it's good, it kind of feels like it has a guaranteed Best Picture slot waiting for it.
Sure.
So you've already got a blockbuster there, a sequel there nominated. Now, Avatar and Top Gun Maverick were both nominated together in Best Picture 2 years ago. So could it happen again? Maybe, I guess. I don't think so. I really don't think so. But, I will say this, awards are not everything. And I think the movie looks great. The trailer that they showed us, again, really kind of honing in on the culmination of a franchise. They have callbacks in the trailer to every single previous Mission Impossible film. And so, again, really leaning hard into it feels like this is the last one. So, yeah, so that was great to see. I loved seeing Tom Cruise there. He did also take time. I should mention he had a moment of silence for his friend Val Kilmer, who had just
Yeah.
passed away 2 days before, and that was I'm glad that I got to experience that. That was
Mhm.
really special, and he encouraged everyone to, in the moment of silence, to think about their favorite memories that Val Kilmer has brought them on the screen. So that was really special. So it was great to see him out there and honoring cinema.
Yeah.
I really appreciated getting to witness that for sure,
As he does.
as he does, as he is known to do, for sure. Elsewhere, we got another Colleen Hoover call out here. We had Regretting You is in the works. So we saw Willa Fitzgerald, Allison Williams, and Scott Eastwood there just on behind the scenes. We didn't get an actual trailer. They were just reading some of the like spicier scenes from the book and kind of laughing about that. So that one's coming out. Look forward to that. Elsewhere, definitely of note to our audience specifically is Derek Cianfrance has a new movie, Roof Man.
Yeah, which I've been hearing about for a while, and I kind of gathered that this was going to be very different than his previous films, especially like, you know, Channing Tatum, I loves to lean into his goofy side a little bit sometimes, and so I had a feeling that this was going to be a bit more less serious, but it still sounds like it's going to be like quality goofy, if that makes sense.
I think that's a fair way to say it. Quality goofy. It looked good. It definitely looks different than I would expect.
Mhm.
So yeah, from seeing France, this doesn't look anything like anything else I've ever seen from him. Not even close. Not even the same venue. Way more than we talked about Aronofsky to Caught Stealing. A lot more like that. Still looks like an Aronofsky movie. This one is like you could have given me 50 guesses. I wouldn't have guessed that Derek Cianfrance directed this film.
Yeah.
Um, that said, it does look funny. Like it looks hilarious. And Channing Tatum talked about how it does have it can be devastating emotional is what he said at the same time as being hilarious. The trailer really just showcased the hilarious part. So it's just about a bumbling criminal who robs a bunch of McDonald's and then he goes on the run and he hides in a Toys R Us. And he hides there like long term. Like I guess he carves himself out a spot and he hides in this Toys R Us for a long time. This is a true story, apparently. Um, and then he develops a relationship with one of the Toys R Us workers, played by Kirsten Dunst. Um, Looks very silly, very goofy. Again, they said it can be devastatingly emotional. We didn't see that in the trailer. I would compare it more closely to like Logan Lucky is what was in my brain,
Mm.
more than, Place Beyond the Pines or anything like that. So I don't know what to make of it. Definitely didn't seem like an awards play at all. Seems like it's a commercial play, but we'll see. Maybe the darker stuff is just not coming through in the trailer. Maybe that's a hard tone to draw for them. I don't know, but yeah, that's Roof Man. Definitely different than I expected for sure.
Well, I like Logan Lucky.
Yeah, Logan Lucky's good. It looked good. Like I'm not gonna say it didn't look good. It looked good.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people were looking forward to Scream news. We didn't get anything new from there, but they just confirmed.
They are going to want to keep that in the DL, I
Yeah,
imagine, for a lot of different
a lot
reasons.
of reasons. Yeah, but they did confirm it's coming out next year. Children of Blood and Bone is a new franchise that's coming out next year, as well as quote untitled Trey Parker, Matt Stone, and Kendrick Lamar film, which they had a logo that said that. So I don't know if they're keeping that title. I imagine not, but they did have a logo treatment for it, and that's coming out next year as well. They did talk about a few animated releases. Paw Patrol Dino movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem sequel is coming out, as well as The Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender, which is very exciting that that's coming out. But they didn't give us anything new on any of those.
How did it feel to be in the audience and to see everybody posting about the Naked Gun before you guys heard about it?
Yeah, that was so frustrating. I was like we're supposed to get the exclusive look. Yeah, they posted the trailer like when we were all waiting for the presentation to start. They posted the trailer, but I can't watch the trailer because I'm in this auditorium. So I was like, what the heck? What's going on? It looks funny though.
It did, yeah.
It looks good.
Akiva
Spoof.
Schaffer is a director that I have a lot of trust in.
Yeah, yeah.
And that O.J. Simpson gag to end it
That
was
was
pretty perfect, I gotta say.
and all
Um,
the like heat vision stuff that they were doing
mm.
was so funny. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a point where I was like, Liam Neeson's probably getting too old for this. This is probably not a good fit anymore. Like they should really cast somebody else, you know. But having seen it now in this teaser format, um, I'm more into it than I thought I would be. I'll
Yeah.
just say that much. And like I said, Akiva Schaffer has done really excellent work, even on films where I did not think the film was going to be all that excellent. Remember Chip and Dale? Like
Yeah, right.
that was pretty fantastic. So the guy's got the goods.
Yeah.
I have some confidence in this one.
Yeah, he knows how to he knows how to make a movie that knows what it is.
Yes.
He's not trying to make a Naked Gun movie that is like has more like depth to it than that. And no, it's a Naked Gun movie. Make it crazy, make it stupid, make it absurd. That's what it should be. And so I do trust him to nail that tone.
Yeah.
And the trailer reinforced that. So yeah.
All right. And then the big one. Walt Disney Pictures, aka Searchlight, 20th Century, Marvel, Disney.
Pixar, Lucasfilm,
No
yeah.
Star Wars, from what I understand.
No Star Wars. In fact, I would describe the Disney presentation as maybe the most subdued of all the presentations this year, which is not the case last year. Last year they had a very big presentation. Um, yeah, they really focused exclusively on 2025. Now, I want to be clear, as somebody who's covered CinemaCon a few years now, focusing just on the year at hand is not a bad thing. I think
Hmm.
some people online take that as like a lack of faith in future films or anything like that. But no, that's what CinemaCon's here for. It's really
Yeah.
not even to look forward to 2028 with the Beatles films. It really is to look forward at what's coming to the theater owners in the crowd, what's coming to their theaters this year. And so Disney focused there, So what that means is for people like us, there's fewer like new flashy announcements, but it's really about giving theater owners a taste of what's coming to theaters, and that's what Disney did. So they really focused on this year's slate, starting with Lilo and Stitch. They remember the campaign from when we were kids of like Stitch breaking into like Beauty and the Beast and all those movies. Do you remember those trailers from when we were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
They did that again this year, which was great. I know they've been doing that here or there, but that they opened with a CinemaCon like exclusive thing with him bursting into their upcoming slate and stuff like that. I thought it was very cute, very good. It's a live action remake. I'm not necessarily psyched for it, but it looks cute enough.
Hmm.
So they showed us an extended scene there that again looked cute. It like most of the Disney live action remakes, visually looks kind of whatever. It doesn't even come close to looking as interesting as the cartoons do, but it looks fine. So that was how they opened the campaign was with Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah. I I'm mixed on this, because there were some elements of the trailer that I was like, oh, that does look, fine. And then there were other elements where I was like, like this
Yeah.
does not look like it's gonna do well in terms of just appealing to me. But commercially, and from what I understand, with pre-sales and or just pre-anticipation, if you will, this thing's gonna be a ginormous hit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a hit no matter what, for sure. Which is fine, But yeah, I'm struggling to get myself too excited for it, but it doesn't look awful. So that's that's the best compliment I can throw at it, I guess. And calling back to another sort of 20-year plus, making a 20-year plus sequel or remake, whatever you want to say. Freakier Friday. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis were here for Freakier Friday, which maybe I'm just not paying attention. Maybe I'm just not looped in. I don't know what the twist is this time. There's like a quadruple swap going on with like Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan, and like Lindsay Lohan's daughter, and then another kid. I don't know what's going on. But they showed us a scene from the film with Chad Michael Murray, and it looks funny. It looks funny for what it is. Again, I have a very similar response to that I did to Lilo and Stitch. Like, sure, it looks funny, it looks fine, for nostalgia, it looks fine, you know.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Look, let's move on to things that I am more excited about.
Sure, please.
Looks from Disney that did actually excite me. Okay, they broke out into a laser show all across the Coliseum there at Caesar's Palace, and Jared Leto and Jeff Bridges came out for Tron Ares.
Trailer tomorrow.
Oh, I didn't realize they were announcing releasing it so soon. The trailer looks great.
That's
So
awesome.
maybe by the time you watch this video here, you've already seen the trailer. I loved the way it looked. I thought it looked great. The kind of spin that they said is that it's Ares is like a virus that makes the leap to the real world. And so we saw Tron bikes like crashing into cars in a city. We saw some sort of spaceship in the sky that they have to bring down. Lots of Greta Lee in the trailer. I don't know if she's the lead, but I feel like she was the face that we saw the most in the trailer. Also saw a lot of Jared Leto. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if the music in the trailer was actually from Nine Inch Nails, but they are doing the score, so
Hmm.
I'm psyched for that. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. I'm not the biggest Tron guy, but this looks really good. The visuals were stunning, so I'm fully in.
Yeah, the director of this film here, Joaquin Roning, is someone who, um, I wasn't really the biggest fan of Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, but I thought Young Woman in the Sea was like far
Yeah.
better than I ever thought it would be. And then, of course, the less we could say about Dead Man Tell No Tales and the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, the better. But I've never been a big Tron fan just in general.
Same, yeah.
But Nine Inch Nails doing the score for this, based, I'll have more to say when we see the trailer. Like when I see the trailer, rather, I will, will report back to you, and I will let you know how I feel.
Yeah, like I said, same. My feelings on Tron are similar, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm in."
Yeah.
Now the next thing that got me really excited is Predator Badlands. Now they conveniently didn't talk about the fact that they dumped Prey to Hulu. I'm sure the theater owners would have loved an apology for that.
Yeah.
They didn't apologize, but this new film looks like a crazy twist. It's also from Dan Trachtenberg, so that's exciting enough. But the question, Elle Fanning came out and she said the sort of question at the heart of the concept for Predator Badlands is what if the Predator was the hero? And so it finds the Predator crash landing on an extraordinarily violent alien planet, and people are killing each other all over the place, and he has to basically fight to survive. And he teams up with Elle Fanning to do that. It looks good. Dan Trachtenberg knows how to shoot a movie, as we saw
Hmm.
with Prey, and this looks pretty great. I'm not the biggest Predator guy. I loved Prey, and so I'm really excited for this as well.
Yeah, Elle Fanning, great presence. Dan Trachtenberg did a great job with Prey. I see no reason to distrust this right now,
Yeah.
especially considering how good Prey was. So you know, Predator is also like not my favorite franchise in the world either, but at the same time, I like what Trachtenberg is doing with it so
hmm
far, and just finding unique ways to take these properties that we are familiar with and just tell different stories with it is
Yeah.
quite
And the
exciting.
and the fact that they're making the theatrical bet on it, they're not just saying, "Oh, that was a hit on Hulu. Let's put another one on Hulu."
Yeah.
That gives me confidence that they believe in this to make money. So that's really exciting. The next thing that they went into, they celebrated the award success during the presentation for A Complete Unknown,
Hmm.
and very similarly, they showed us a first look at Deliver Me from Nowhere, Jeremy Allen White's Bruce Springsteen biopic from director Scott Cooper. White was there. Jeremy Strong was there. He plays his manager in the film, John Landau.
I can't think of a single person at CinemaCon who probably wanted to be there less than Jeremy Strong. Like, yeah, like movie's great. Hope you all go see it.
You know what? You'd actually be surprised. What a
Yeah,
lot of the people who come out, especially people like Jeremy Strong, remember who's in the crowd. These are theater owners. These are exhibitors. This is
sure.
not a Comic-Con crowd of like screaming fans, right?
Uh-huh.
This is industry. This is the people who bring movies to the big screen. And so Jeremy Strong actually he really had like a heartfelt like thank you to the crowd for supporting cinema and making cinema happen, which is what a lot of people who come out do that.
That
This
okay,
is
that's more understandable then and more
exactly
aligned with how I would imagine Jeremy Strong being.
exactly.
I can't imagine Jeremy Strong like at a CinemaCon like, woo, yeah, let's go everyone.
No, that was great. And that's the thing. That's what I want more people to know about CinemaCon is that I think I saw some press, some young guys who were there for the first time.
Mhm.
And as we were talking, they were like saying, "Oh, is this like your most exciting event of the year?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, but this is not Comic-Con. This is an industry event. Press is the afterthought. It's not for us. This
Yeah.
is for theater owners." And so yeah, that's what I want more people to know about CinemaCon is because I think people are trying to make it into a Comic-Con, and that's
Mhm.
just not what it is. So
Right.
anyway, that was a whole aside. Deliver Me from Nowhere. I'm not a big Bruce Springsteen guy. I like his music, but I just don't know that much about his life, so I can't tell you the ins and outs of like what we saw.
Mhm.
But I can tell you Jeremy Allen White looks like the real deal. It ends with him playing Born to Run like at a concert, and it's very sweaty and very, it looked great. The
How does he
tone,
sound?
he sounded good. I couldn't tell, to be honest with you. Again, I only watched it that one time. I need to, see it further. I couldn't tell if that was him singing. It sounded like Springsteen,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I'm not a big enough Springsteen fan to tell you like there's no way it was him.
Yeah.
I don't know. So couldn't tell that, but I can tell you the tone of the trailer. It kind of, ended on that big note of singing Born to Run, but the rest of the trailer was very gentle, slow moving.
Scott Cooper,
Um,
man.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it was very, very like internal, personal as he's crafting Nebraska, his album.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it felt like the real deal. It felt like, yeah, this is going to be another complete unknown. I totally understand people are over music biopics, totally get it. But I love the complete unknown, and this one looks great too. So now I am more of a Bob Dylan fan than a Bruce Springsteen fan, so maybe that I don't know how much that'll play into my love of the movie. But yeah, I was a fan of what we saw. I really was.
And I want to see Jeremy Allen White do well. This
Yes.
is his first big role post Bear,
Yeah.
and I say big where like he's the lead.
Yes.
Jeremy Strong, obviously coming off of an Oscar nomination, his career is now the hottest it's ever been. And I say that also following the success of Succession as well.
Yeah.
Where he's now a marquee name that can sell a movie like this. I was
It
really curious about the tone, and so I'm kind of glad that this sounds like a Scott Cooper film because
it
I
does.
was wondering if it was going to be like Scott Cooper's Bohemian Rhapsody, as
Yeah, it doesn't
opposed
feel that way at
to
all.
the
Yeah.
guy who gave us Crazy Heart.
Yeah, it definitely, again, just judging from the trailer, it definitely appears to have that slower, more intimate sort of feel. So that's good. I also wanted to note that we saw glimpses in the trailer of Stephen Graham, who plays his father, in sort of flashbacks. I believe they were black and white flashbacks. I don't know how prominent that role is. They didn't talk about that, but I just found it interesting. He could be. He'll almost certainly be nominated for an Emmy, maybe even winning an Emmy. We'll see. And so he'll be in awards season around that time with Screen Actors Guild and all that stuff. So if the role is big, prominent, usually fathers, if they're like abusive father roles or whatever, those can often attract awards attention. So of course you have Jeremy Strong, who I assume will be the supporting play for the film, but you never know.
Yeah. So then besides that, because we only have a couple more minutes left here, so we're gonna just like speed through this. Tell me, for Ella McKay, did this look like James L. Brooks in the bag, or did this just look like a forgettable? Yeah, okay, either way.
Yeah, it looks fine. It doesn't look bad.
Okay.
It looks like classic Brooks, but I don't necessarily mean that as a compliment. It just kind of looks like it looks old-fashioned, which can be good. Light dramedy, some political themes in there, but very funny with some, wrestling with personal stuff. It looks fine. It looks fine.
Jay
Yeah.
Roach's The Roses coming out in August before the fall film festivals.
Not a
Not
not an awards play. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't seem that way at all, just even based on that. And then I heard the footage. Yes, Olivia Colman, Benedict Cumberbatch, former Oscar nominees, but just like you said it yourself in your write up, more of a commercial play for streaming than like it sounds like something that's just gonna go straight to Hulu. It sounds like.
It is not going to go straight to Hulu because otherwise it would
Oh,
not be at CinemaCon. So all of
okay.
these films that we talked about here are straight to are direct to theaters, which is great.
But it sounds
Um,
like the type of thing like like last year about Earl's All You Could Eat. Sort of
yeah,
like yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a more commercial play. It's a straight comedy, like it's
Hmm.
it's not it's not it doesn't, at least judging from the trailer, it doesn't look like it's all that much deeper than that. A relationship thing descending into divorce. Yeah, it doesn't look like an Oscar thing. Maybe Golden Globe comedy if it's not a very crowded year. I don't know, but yeah, definitely not a big awards thing.
We saw footage for Fantastic Four, for Thunderbolts. No new information, no about Avengers Doomsday. They just
Nothing.
started on that. And everything else that we know about Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, it's not like there was new information, just more like hyping up stuff that we already
Hyping it up.
know.
We saw Silver Surfer for the first time, but that
From a
was
visual effects standpoint, how did she look?
she looked good. I mean, she's a silver person. Yes, pretty blank.
Like
Um,
CGI or painted
oh,
silver?
CGI, CGI, yeah,
Oh, okay,
absolutely
okay.
CGI. Yeah,
And to
yeah,
be clear, this is Emmy Award winner Julia Garner.
correct,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
So.
Yep. So it looked good. I'm into the movie.
So let's end on the big one then. Big Jim himself,
Big
James
Jim.
Cameron, Avatar: Fire and Ash. I'm very jealous that you saw footage for this, Howat, but at the same time, this has been a very interesting thing because there was such a gap between the first Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water that the visual effects stunned us all over again. Did this have that same kind of impact, or did it just look like more of the same, just obviously with different characters in an environment? Because
It's hard to
I,
say.
I just wondering if it's gonna like lose that kind of special appeal, considering the last one just came out like 3 years ago,
I think
whatever
that's
it
a
was.
that's a very fair question to ask if it's going to lose its appeal. That I can't answer.
Yeah.
What I can say is yes and no.
Mm.
Does it look like more of the same? Yes. Um, but I can tell you, like, I still had that feeling of, wow, this still looks incredible.
Yeah,
That's the feeling
sure.
I had. They did it in 3D, so we had 3D glasses and high frame rate.
Love it.
And yeah, I really did have the feeling of like, damn, it still looks great. The 3D looked good. The high frame rate was immersive. Yeah, I mean, just no one's doing it like Jim Cameron. No one has done it like James Cameron. So, yeah, the footage looked really good. We saw like a volcano setting. We saw desolate desert. We saw a sequence where the Sully family are uniting with these peaceful people, peaceful nomads called the Wind Traders, and then the Ash people come and attack them. It's thrilling. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know is it more of the same? Yes, but it's more of this, it's more of Avatar, and it really looked gripping. It looked incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I expect it to look incredible. I'm
Yeah.
also expecting it to rip our hearts out.
Yeah.
I have a strong feeling that Jake Sully is not long for this world. Following this film, but we'll see. It's very interesting to see where this story is going to progress, and I mean that in the sense of I do think that the kids that he cast for the second film are going to obviously be the more prominent characters probably moving forward, especially when we get to like Avatar 4 and Avatar 5 and Avatar 55. But was there anything else that like jumped out at you in this presentation that, anything else you want to note or?
No, I mean, we skipped over Zootopia 2 and Elio. They're two animated films that they got coming out. They look good. There's not much else to say about them. I mean, I love the animation for Elio. It looks really good. And then for Zootopia, they had Kiwi Kwan there who plays a new role. And the sequences that they showed us looked really cute, really funny. So yeah, I mean, they look like standard. Again, like we talked about earlier, the state of animation is in big flux these days, with Disney not being as dominant, Disney or Pixar as dominant as they used to be. So, those were probably the best animated things that I saw at all of CinemaCon, though. So, take that for what it is.
It's very interesting, though, when you bring up these two animated films, and yet the animated film I'm looking forward to the most is The Bad Guys 2.
Yeah, yeah, and they did talk about the bad guys too
Yeah,
for
that was
Universal's presentation.
Universal, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I agree with you. The state of animation right now is definitely more international than it's ever been before, leaning towards more adult stories, and it'll be very interesting to see, how the industry continues to react to that moving forward, especially from an award standpoint. Okay, so we've got like less than a minute here, Howard. Is there anything else you want to say before you go?
No, I thought it was a great CinemaCon. Again, celebrating the power of theaters, celebrating exhibitors and theater owners, and taking a look at all the films that studios are bringing to theaters soon. So, yeah, I appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody following along. It was really exciting, and I can't wait to see all of these movies in the theaters.
And I also want to shout out you, Howard, for your coverage there. I know it's a lot to keep track of, but it does sound like a really, really fun time. And I know that everyone here is jealous that you got a sneak peek of all these movies. But at the same time, just want to say thank you on behalf of the team and also the MVP film community for everything that you did here in covering this year's CinemaCon. And before we go, special shout out to the studio. Watch the last two episodes that are all about CinemaCon.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely hilarious. Really, really good stuff. All right, man. Well, thanks once again for coming on, and we will see you all next time.